How can lawyers keep up with everything while practicing and running their own law firm?
But also, don't be afraid to use more than one system, because I use more than one AI system in the practice of law, and I use more than one AI.
It's also a big problem of AI slop, right? So,
Mhm.
like you have mentioned that you basically do weeks of work.
AI is just another tool that's come along, particularly a technology based tool for anyone in business, including attorneys.
Welcome back to the show. Um, Today we are diving into business law in 2026, and my guest is a very important attorney, Matthew uh, Fornaro, a business law attorney who left Save to AM Law 200 firms 11 years ago to build his own practice. And Mr. Fornaro owns Matthew Fornaro Law. Thanks for coming, and I'm really happy that you've joined me today.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Right, Mr. Matthew, you have talked about, and you often talk about the plateau in these big firms, like so that moment where equity buy-in feels like a life sentence. You chose independence. But here's my harmless anecdote. I have talked to many lawyers in the same space who believe that or who look at the predictable income and the massive benefits as a golden safety net. So why trade that for uncertainty of a solo shingle?
Sure. So, obviously one size doesn't fit all. And, what's a good choice for one person isn't necessarily a good choice for another person. And I thought that at that point in my career, and, my profession, my whatever you want to call it, and attribute all the things to it, I felt that the better move for me was to try to do something on my own rather than to be stuck in a big law firm and the machinations of a big law firm probably for the rest of my professional life.
Mm.
Even though I understand that you're allegedly guaranteed some kind of income or some kind of safety, but I think that that's also kind of a misnomer too.
Right. So what you did was always built in you because a lot of people totally lack business education, right? They don't study business fundamentals during their law education. So, if a young attorney is listening right now, do they really need to learn the nuts and bolts before they start, or they can just wing it like you did, or you did not?
Sure. So I would say learn as much as possible, as early as possible, about how business actually functions and how to start a business and run a business and the things that go into a business and owning your own business or being part of another business that's not necessarily a big business or whatever. So yeah, don't wing it. I had to wing it because I didn't know anything. I got lucky, and I also was fortunate because I did some educational programs that kind of helped me out. So, my advice would be is not to wing it and not to just jump into it. Try to get as much education and information as possible.
And that education that you talk about, does it come from experiencing firsthand working in a law firm, or they should actually read about business as a different subject altogether?
Well, you're never going to learn about the business side of a law firm by working in a big law firm. Particularly the bigger
Mhm.
firm you work in, the less you're going to learn about actual business of a law firm itself. So I would say at a smaller firm, yeah, you'll probably learn more about the actual business of law, but it's best to, learn about business from, business education, business information that's out there. If you're already, obviously the best time would be if you're in college or undergrad or even if you're in law school. But if not, do supplemental education or do, whatever. There's lots of great books and programs out there that you can learn all about business, but you're definitely not going to learn about it in a law firm.
Right. So let's suppose now somebody has learned, maybe failed a couple of business before they have finished their law degree, and they do know a lot of business, but here comes something that you've been talking about is that in today's time, in 2026, where we see it's an age of AI, how you think AI is a force multiplier?
Yes, I think AI is probably the biggest technology thing to hit all businesses, maybe ever. Maybe the
Mhm.
internet would be bigger, but AI is probably the next biggest thing that's ever hit business, and it's just getting bigger and more invasive as time goes on. So, as a business person, or as a professional, or more importantly, as a human, in 2026, you need to be proficient in AI because if you're not, you're going to be surpassed by people who are, no matter what it is you're doing.
Mm. So, my question is that let's say somebody is proficient enough, but then there is also a big problem of AI slop, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
like you have mentioned that you basically do weeks of work, you draft a lot of stuff, and those 10 minutes draft which AI can do, uh, that really improves efficiency if we compare it to a human. But if somebody has taken out the draft and then, with the perspective of a lawyer who has a higher hourly rate, do you think it's even considerable to use AI to a certain extent where you have to again fix a lot of stuff that it generates?
Sure. AI is just another tool that's come along, particularly a technology based tool for anyone in business, including attorneys. So previously, going back many generations of attorneys now, there was no internet, there was no online research. So in order to do legal research or draft documents, you would have to go to a law library, or if you were
Mm.
fortunate enough to have a firm that had the books themselves, you'd have to go and research in the books. And those
Right.
were supplanted by online legal research services like a quarter century ago at this point, a little bit longer. And now those legal research services and things are being not supplanted, they're being supplemented by AI. So the AI, again, and the first thing I'll always say about AI is you need to take ownership of it. You are ultimately responsible for what goes out there. So you need to, trust but verify the AI. You need to check the AI. You need to edit the AI. You need to make sure that the work product that comes out from the AI is
Mm.
acceptable. And a lot of people get in trouble by just passing on the AI without doing the necessary due diligence to make sure that it's correct and accurate. So the AI saves the attorney a lot of time and ultimately saves the client a lot of money because a lot of the brute force labor that you would have to do previously is now assisted by the AI. So instead of it taking you hours to do something, it now takes you minutes, just like in the past when to
Mm.
do research it would have taken you hours to look in books, and by doing online research with Westlaw or Lexis it would take you
Mm.
minutes. It's just another evolution of that. The same thing where it would take you hours and possibly you'd need someone else to help you type up a document using a typewriter. Then it was
Right.
supplanted by a word processor in a computer. So it's
Mm.
just the same evolution. It's just moving a lot quicker, and the AI is doing a lot more stuff than the previous technology leaps have done in the past. But again, you take ownership of it and you review everything and you make sure that it's done accurately. Whatever the time that it takes to do that is exponentially less than the time it would take you to do it without the AI.
Right. And these days, like you said, you just mentioned Westlaw, co-counsel, and Clio is heavily investing into AI as well. But within few weeks, you remember Claude's AI legal tool came up, right? And that really sort of confused the users who were already using Westlaw or Clio. What do you think? How can people really keep up with all this? Because every single day there is a new tool that's going to be dropped that might be better for a long shot or even a small marginal benefit. But the thing is, how can lawyers keep up with everything while practicing and running their own law firm?
Sure. So it's hard to do so because you're, you know, not just in the law, but in basically any industry, you're in a whirlwind of essentially a technological arms race that the stakes get higher and the weapons, if you want to use that kind of metaphor, get better and, whatever every day. And you have to be an active practicing attorney if you're an attorney, or if you're, in a different industry, be involved in that industry. While at the same time, if you're implementing AI or technology, you have to be aware of what's coming down the road, because what you're using right now is, a, a 1, 2, or a 3, and what's coming out next is like a 7 or 8, and then a 10 is going to come out after that. So I think one of the things you need to do as a practitioner or whatever is not, be familiar with what's out there and what's coming out there, and you're not necessarily married to any particular technology or platform. You're just married to the concept of implementing better technology into your practice. And if something better comes along, then you have to seriously consider, can I implement this and use it instead of what I'm already using? And that's an ongoing dialogue that you have, or monologue if you want, that you have to have. And you can't just say, I'm sticking with, Acme products and it's that to the end. No, because something's going to come along to replace it very quickly or supplement it. And then, the Acme or whatever company you want to say is going to probably have their own version that comes out themselves, because most of these companies aren't just a one and done. They're an ongoing venture. And you talk about Westlaw, and you talk about Clio or Lexus or whatever, they keep improving their AI and expanding their AI programs, and they keep reacting to each other's innovations, and they keep coming up with their own innovations, whatever. So it's not necessarily, even if something better comes out, you're stuck. What you're with is probably going to have that version of what came out that's better. But if not, try to have short-term contracts, even though these people love to lock you into long-term contracts in case you have to jump. But also, don't be afraid to use more than one system, because I use more than one AI system in the practice of law, and I use more than one AI system in the running of my business. And could I have used one? Yeah, maybe I could have used one, but can I use many? Yeah. And then, the cost is just part of your overhead now, and that's got to be figured into your business model. Just like how previously you went from, going to a library to having books, and then from having books to having an online, research service. You went from having a typewriter to having a, expensive computer. Then you went to having a less expensive computer. Now, it's just part of the progression where it's got to be, you have to be ready to implement these and bring them into your toolbox, and not be afraid or mad that something better comes out. You should be embrace it and figure out from a business decision standpoint if the new technology is more useful to you, and then implement it into your technology. Or, you can wait a little bit and see if what you have is going to implement that new technology too, which, they probably will, because like I said, it's an ongoing technology arms race focused on AI, where everyone just keeps rolling out new and better stuff.
Right. So let's suppose that attorney wants to build a website, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the websites these days, AI can generate them pretty quickly. But then the problem is that a lot of stuff is not really optimized, specifically when it comes to SEO, right? Because you
Mm-hmm.
have to do a lot of keyword research. There, constant indexing with search index. There's geo optimization that is happening. So a service that charges you like $2,000 a month to optimize your website, rank you on the first page. Why would you basically uh, really, trust a $50 AI tool to do that?
uh, because A, the service is probably using a version of the $50 tool and is just marking it up for you, and B, the $50 tool does it. So I mean, it's so much. I started my law firm 11, almost 11 years ago, and 2015 isn't that far away and wasn't that untechnologically sophisticated, but the quantum leaps in technology that have taken place since then are unbelievable, particularly regarding anything related to, SEO, website design, things like that. And then even before I started, like in my career since being an attorney in 2003, it's been, night and day since then. So
Mm.
all the issues you just identified, as far as SEO optimization, keywords, now AI optimization, indexing, all that stuff. These are things that you would have had to have paid a company or a person or a service thousands of dollars previously in the past to do at a certain level. And now the technology itself is so good that you can have a, you know, AI agent, bot, program, app, whatever you want to call it, do a better job than the person or the company could do for a tenth of the cost. And it will be
Mm.
ongoing. It'll never, be tired. It'll never miss deadlines. It'll never do anything. And it's just the nature of the thing. And a lot of these companies that are doing this or whatever are going to run into trouble because it's not do it yourself. It's the AI does it for me. I'm not doing it myself. I have,
Mm.
instead of paying a company to do X, I pay AI to do X and it does X. And
Mm.
it's a tenth of the cost. And there's no justification for why I should pay 10 times more to have a company with people do it when the AI can do it. And I literally see the results and it's not, hallucinations. It's not slow. It's accurate and
Mm.
it's correct in what it does. And so for, the attorneys starting out or for the, entrepreneurs starting out or whatever, look, like I said, do the consumer research. You'll see, people have lots of comments about these platforms and stuff, and you'll see that they work and they do a good job. And all, the platforms I use do a great job and they work. And,
Mm.
like one of the things I still have is I still have, like my, for lack of a better term, like you want to call him my internet guy,
Mm.
my technical guy or whatever. He still works on my website and hosts my website and everything. And the reason
Mm.
why I keep him around is because he does a good job. But also, he is like a human. He keeps the humanity in the chain so that anytime
Mm.
I have an issue with like website hosting or I want to post something on my website or whatever, I keep him around because I can easily access him and I know it's going to be done. Can AI do it? Yeah, probably. But for me, I'm more comfortable keeping a person around. So I'm not totally, abandon humanity for AI. I still keep people in the chain. But for other things that I was doing previously, I've let AI take over and do it because it does it much more proficiently. It does it much better and it does it much cheaper. And then, just for example, for your
Mm.
website and for your SEO and your AI optimization, I mean, I get ads in feeds all the time for a, industry specific AI optimized, SEO optimized, ongoing keyword indexed, web design where you only have to pay less than $50 and it'll
Mm.
design the website and constantly update it for you on a monthly basis and it's $50 per month versus 10 years ago where that would have cost me thousands of dollars to have someone go design it and do it and not even do as
Mm.
good of a job. So look for the solution out there, vet the solution, make sure the solution works for you and implement it because it's probably going to work. And like I said, do the consumer research because it's the thing's probably going to do a good job.
Mm. So here's my question, because the same thing might apply on law as well, right? Previously, and still a lot of law firms do, they charge by hour, right? So there
Mm-hmm.
are billable hours, and then there are monthly retainers. Do you think AI will kill this approach? And since hourly billing makes a lot of money for the law firm, why won't law firms really adopt AI in the first place then?
Sure. So I don't think as a existential matter that AI is going to kill for litigation purposes. Let's say the billable hour or
Mm.
the pay a retainer and you bill against the retainer until it's exhausted and then send out things. I think that the way that law firms bill need to adjust to if they use AI or if they use any other technology because it just makes things more efficient. So, for example, I could have previously done, I'm just going to throw numbers out there just to be illustrative, okay?
Mm.
I could have done one thing in 10 hours, okay? With implementing technology, not just AI, but whatever, I can now do 10 things in 10 hours. So I will bill my clients, 1 hour instead of billing them 10 hours. And that's
Mm.
using technology, but that's me actually doing the work and using the technology. That's not me marking up my bills or making up numbers or whatever, or value billing saying, well, it would have taken in 10 hours anyway, so I'm going to bill you 10 hours anyway, even though it took you 1 hour. No, it legitimately took you 1 hour, I'm going to bill you for 1 hour. So the way that that works economically is that instead of me just being able to do one thing, now I can do 10 things. So I make the same amount of money I did previously, or at least I should say I bill for the same amount of money I did previously. I just do much more work. And that's how I've adapted my business model. And I bill mostly hourly, except on certain, drafting or transactional matters that I do on a flat fee basis. So that's how I've adapted, and that's how I hope other law firms are going to adapt, is to realistically and authentically reflect what their billing is now, because it's like I said, you're much more efficient. So you should be billing less time on each particular matter, but you should be billing more particular matters, and that's how the economics model should develop.
Mm, exactly. So that's a great take actually, because uh, I've heard a lot of people talk about it. I never got a take like this. So thank you for that. But if let's suppose AI can potentially replace a lot of workforce within certain law firm, what is the basic job of a founder or the managing partner in that firm? Because you've talked about LinkedIn a lot, and what's your take on that?
On what the role of the leader of the law firm should be doing in the world of AI or whatever, I think they should be uh, reflective on a lot of the things we talked about and figure out how they're going to implement that technology in their business model and in their actual practice of law and their execution of business in their law firm. And then if they're part of a bigger firm, they should make sure that they have, from a top down and from a bottom up approach, how they're going to implement this technology from a business perspective and do things, and make sure that it's economically feasible for them, and it's economically feasible, most importantly, for the clients. And like I said, that they're going to actually bill for the work they do, not that
Mm,
the work they hypothetically could have done, which is what some people may do or may not do, which obviously is not okay. But that's what they should be doing. Is they should be requesting from their higher ups or whatever clear guidance on how they're going to implement all of this technology into their practice, and obviously take it out to their local office and all their attorneys and all their employees.
right. And you basically advocated on building your personal brand on LinkedIn before you start your websites and other technological things. Why do you think that is important in today's time?
Sure, because your personal brand is synonymous with A, your own professional identity, and then B, that identity that you bring to business, particularly if it's your own business. So you need to make sure that you have a viable personal brand that actually stands for something, and then you can build upon that brand. So, like for instance, like I represent small businesses, entrepreneurs, and startups in litigation and transactional matters, predominantly in Florida, but elsewhere as well. So that's kind of my brand. I have like a mission statement on my website. I have like a bio on my website, and that's my personal brand that gets mixed into my business brand. So obviously, who I am. You can look me up. You can, do all your due diligence and research and see what I'm about. And that way, hopefully, if you're looking for a business law attorney, you come and find me. So if you're an attorney who's in whatever practice area or whatever, you want to make sure that you have that kind of identification, not just recognition, but you identify with something that then becomes recognizable. But if you're just kind of out there floating around being like a general practitioner, or you just kind of do whatever shows up, or you kind of go with the flow, then you're going to have problems because you're not able to distinguish yourself or your
Mm,
brand from anyone else. Because why would I hire you when I can hire someone who focuses on the specific issue or problem that I need addressed in the specific geographic market that I'm in, versus you who just kind of do whatever. So that's why it's very important to have that in place and to build on that from the beginning, no matter what it is you're doing.
right. And this basically also brings another problem, because I see a lot of lawyers are talking about the same problem on Reddit. Now there is a choice they have to make. suppose they're new into their own business and they do want clients, right? So a lot of people want to do a lot of stuff, different, law areas together. So at that particular time when they're starting, do you think it's important to pick a niche or do any kind of work that you're going to get, and then after a while you should transition towards a specific niche where you can look like an expert in it?
Sure. So obviously, I understand it's a lot easier said than done, particularly when you're starting out. And, I know for myself from experience that there's a lot of clients and matters that I took on 11 years ago that I would go nowhere near right now. So, you know, you want to at least have an aspirational goal or focus of what you want to eventually become and figure out how you're going to get there. In the interim, I understand that you need money and you have to eat and you have to do things. So you may need to take on matters or clients or geographic areas or whatever that you wouldn't ordinarily do if you had more business focused on what your niche is going to be or what your segment is going to be or whatever. So I would have the plan in place at the beginning to figure out what it is you want to do, how you want to do it, and implement it, and then try to focus on getting those kind of clients by doing a lot of the things we talked about previously, regarding like all your SEO optimization, all your stuff with the internet, all your social media, all stuff like that. And then in the interim, if you have to take things that are outside of your practice area, you can do it. Just make sure that you know what you're doing and that you're, from an ethics standpoint, from a legal standpoint, from a moral standpoint, from a business standpoint, you're responsible if you get into an area of law that you really don't know a lot about, or a practice that you don't know about, or a geographic area you really don't know about, that you are totally proficient in doing that. And if you can't do that, then you have to pass on that matter and refer it out and try to get a referral fee from someone, or try to get a co-counsel fee from someone, and try to do things that way. And if not, if it's way over your head or whatever, I mean, opportunity is going to come down the road later on. Just let it pass and you'll find something else.
Right. So while, like you said, you have to, sometimes make compromises in that way. But then let's suppose they start building their own brand on LinkedIn, right? Now they need to post content, right? Now, how do you basically ensure that if we use AI to build a person brand on LinkedIn, post content, it does not just become another AI slop that we see all the times bot posting? How do you keep the Matthew Fornaro flavor in these posts so they don't sound like everybody else?
Sure. So, if you're using like AI to help you do the post, there's actually settings and guardrails on the AI now that keep them like innovative and practice specific and business specific and geographic specific. So it's kind of baked into the software itself. But again, it comes back to you're in control of everything before you put anything out there or whatever. Make sure you review it and make sure you put in that it's like authentic onto your brand or onto your practice area, and not just like general like legal help, call me, or, located in South Florida, call me. No, make sure it talks about like
Mm.
specific issues, like business issues, for me or things like that. So, you just make sure you don't get lost in the noise. And then, of course, there's all kinds of things that you can do to be innovative regarding social media and posting or whatever, like, meme generators and short content videos and all